Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So this is part 10 of our .NET full stack series. And in the previous video we saw like how we can make use of iGeneric repository pattern and unit of work pattern, like what we have just created the bare minimum files, and we have also configured the dependency injection for them by using this service collection extensions. So in this today's video what we are going to do, right? So we will be creating our first API endpoint for doing the login and register. Okay, so which means that we will be touching up this API project and we will also be touch this application project, and we will take a look at how we can create our first API in this particular auth controller, and we will also see how we will create our interfaces in the application layer and also the implementation of those interface in this particular service. So this is what we are going to cover up in this particular video. But before starting with that video, right, if you remember in the last video we were able to build our project and we were getting this 10 warnings. So I wanted to just go ahead and see how we can fix up these warnings. Okay, if you see here, right, so it says that this has to be like, it says that must contain a null value with existing constructor. Okay, so what we can do, right, I can initialize an empty value to it by saying new list of users, something like this. But if you remember, right, in the new upgrades of C#, right, then you can directly do something like this and it will inherit that, okay, this is nothing but a empty list of type user roles. But now with this new .NET 8, what you can do, right, you can directly tell that, okay, if I hover on this, you will get an option for a quick fix which says that connection initialization can be more simplified by directly adding up like this. So if you add this empty bracket, which means that this is initialized with an empty list. Okay, so this is what I did and the warning is gone. So let me just go ahead and check for the other entities as well. So if I go in the blog, I can do something similar over here for comments. For user, I can make this as nullable by adding this question mark. Okay, let me do for the comment as well for user like this. Alright, so this is what I did for these comments. Let's go for the user. Okay, this all are lists, so I can initialize them as empty, and this one as well as empty. Okay, alright, so this is also done, and in the user role I'll just have to say that this can be nullable. That's it. And if I save all the changes, I see I made changes in this file. Let's go here and try to do .NET build again. Okay, and this time I am expecting that it should be all green. Okay, so I can see the build is succeed with 0 warning and 0 errors. It's okay to have warning, guys, but just that I think I could have fixed those warnings, so I thought let's go ahead and do it before even starting the video. Alright, so let me just go ahead and start with the steps. So step number 1, right, I will be going in the controller, in the auth controller, and I will create the 2 API endpoints, which is the HTTP post. Okay, so the first API will be for register. All right, and then after that I will be making use of public async, and this will be of, this is a task. Okay, task of iResult. Okay, something like that, I can make use of it, iResult, and then my method name will be register. Okay, alright, if I see this bare minimum code which I got from this GitHub Copilot, which I'm not happy about, but yeah, this is something what I can use as a bare minimum. Okay, so I don't want to do all my context things here, and okay, so this is not the correct code. So that's why I'm saying AI is not always correct. You still have to do your own things. Alright, so now what it says that it asking me to take a register DTO which is not even defined. So what we can do, right, we will do something similar, but what I will do, right, will go inside the models. Okay, so what you can do, right, you can create your models or properties and whatnot, so that you can do it directly in the application layer. If you remember, we have a models folder, and inside that you can create 2 folders. One is your request and response. Okay, so for now I want to do it for the request, so let's go here and create that first file. So let me create that particular class, or I can go ahead and create a record now for that. So this is my register request. Okay, and let me hit enter. So this is how my records look like. So I'll say public record, and I can remove these 2 because I don't need that. I can directly add them in the constructor. Okay, and this is what I need bare minimum, like email, password. I think I don't have any display name, so let's go here and check in the user record what all details I have. So I have ID, username, email, and password. Okay, so this is what I will capture from user. So let me take this as a username. So for registering a user, this is what I will require. And guys, I'm using record, so please take a note. Records are quite best if you want to create any DTO or any request object and whatnot, because these are immutable. Okay, so now my register request is created. So let's go here and I'll change this to register request. Okay, and here you can see this has been imported on the top as well. It is coming from the application. All right, so now this is how this will look like. Let me change this to register request with a good name. All right, and now let me add this. Okay, return okay of this and whatnot. Okay, this is my result, right? So what I'll have to say, I'll have to make use of results. Okay, results dot okay or something like that. All right, and now inside this, what you'll have to do, right? You'll have to call your business layer, which is nothing but your application. Okay, your business logic. So now this is what the API endpoint look like, and let me also do it for login as well, so that I can do for both of them after this. So this is my login API, and this will be my login, correct? And this will change to login request. So again, I will go in the application layer, and in this request, I will create a new record again. Okay, select the record and you'll say login request. Hit enter. The record is created. Again, I don't need this, so I'll directly go and add string email and password. That's it. And now again, go into your controller, and now I can see I'll have to change it to login request, and this name can also be changed to login request, and let's save the changes. All right, and now I don't know, but okay, this is saying that okay, this is async method, so it should be awaited. So yeah, it's fine, we will add that later. Okay, so if you remember right now, our API is how so whenever the API call will become to this particular controller, and this controller will call my application layer. So how we are going to configure that, let me tell you that. So in this particular application, so what you will do, right, you have already abstracted your data access layer, right, inside your infrastructure, who is doing all the database related actions, correct, inside this repositories. So now what I will be doing, right, I will have to create my first repository, which is my iUser repository. So let's go here in your domain where you create your interfaces. So let's go here and create my first interface, which is my iUser repository. Okay, and let's hit enter. So inside this I repository, what I will do, right, I will make use of generic repository as well, and this is of type user. Okay, so which means that I'm trying to inherit this, whatever the methods is part of iGeneric repository, now they will become part of this iUser repository as well. But one thing to note here, that I can add my extra implementations as well. Like for example, in this iUser repository, I will only have these methods like get by ID, get all, add async, update and delete. But for example, right, if you have a custom requirement, for example, I want to get the user by email. Okay, I want to get the user roles, I want to get all the users async or something like that. So that you can, if you want your own implementation to be added, so for that you can create your iUser repository and you can start adding up your additional requirement. Like for example, I will have to create a task of user. Okay, and inside this, right, I will create a new method, which is my get user. Okay, get user by ID, I guess, or maybe it's get user by email async. Okay, and now you just have to pass the email. And for example, if I want to fetch the roles of the user, I'm just giving an example, right, so that you can also create. I can say, okay, this is task of list of strings. Okay, because I want to fetch only the role names. Okay, so that also you can do it from here. You can say get user roles async, and you can pass the email of the user. No need to pass the user, you can just pass the user email and you can get the roles of the user. So you can say get user roles by email async. Okay, so this was just the demonstration purpose. Like if you want to add additional method, because sometimes just this 4 method is not enough for you, right, for your for your project. So you need to add your own. So that's how you can do that in your project. Okay, so now I can say that I have a iUser repository created inside my domain, and what I'll do, right, I'll go inside the persistent layer, and inside this repository I will do the implementation of this interface. So let's click here and the add file, choose a class name and give the name as user repository. okay, and hit enter. And now what you will do, right, you will just have to go and implement the interface. So over here what you will say, you'll have to first get it from generic repository. If you remember, you have created it. So this is of type user, okay, what you can pass on the top. And also you have your own implementation as well, which is your iUser repository implementation. Okay, and now if you add this interface, then you will have to implement them, because this generic repository is already implemented. If you remember, right, if I go here, so I have all the implementation already done for add, delete, get by ID, and update. Okay, but I have few new created inside this iUser repository, which is get user by email and get user role by email async. So I'll have to implement them as well. So let me go ahead and implement those. Okay, so the moment I did the implementation, and now let's see why is it breaking. So it says that, okay, if you are using this iGeneric repository, remember, right, in the constructor we have to pass something. If you remember, if I go in the generic repository, so inside this I have to pass the blockdb context instance over here. So same thing, you have to pass it over here in this particular bracket. All right, so now what you will do, you will again go ahead and inject the blockdb context. So this is your blockdb context. Okay, and this is your context, or you can just say blockdb context, and that you have to pass it over here as blockdb context, and that's about it. Okay, again guys, don't get confused, I'm using primary constructor to do my job. If you want to do it, then you have to again write here private read only. You will have to create the constructor and do whatnot, but this project is done in using .NET 8. So I will highly recommend you guys to switch your project to .NET 8 and start developing things. Okay, and that's what we have here at the moment. And now I will tell you like how you can get the user by email and whatnot. So as you remember, right, you have this blockdb context created. Let me make this as async, and what I can do, right, I can return the user from here. So I'll say return, I'll say await, and I have my blockdb context. So I'll say blockdb context, which is there on the top. I don't know why is it not helping me to fetch it. So this is blockdb context dot, and then you will have access to say user, which is this dot, and then you can say first or default async. And inside that, what you can do, you can add your logic like your lambda expression that x dot email is equal to this particular email, and then just put this semicolon. And what this guy will do, this guy will fetch the users based on this particular email ID match. Okay, so this can also be null, so that's why I have added first or default, because this returns null. If it didn't find any user, then this will return a null. Okay, that's about it. All right, so now I have one more method here which tells me the give the roles by email async. So what you can do for here, you can do something similar. Again, let me make this as, okay, I think I already got a solution what I was looking for. So let me press tab. Okay, and here you can see, right, I am able to get this particular logic. So what you need to do, you need to make this as async, and this will become your await. Okay, so now we have created a interface and also the implementation of that. So let's go ahead and add it inside our service collection. So if you remember, we already created the service collection extension, and over here you will have to specify that services dot add scoped, and this is your iUser repository interface, which is in the domain, and this is the user repository what you have created. Okay, so the dependency injection is also done for this because we will be using them inside our application layer now. So once this is done, let's close this infrastructure in this domain, and let's go into our application. And over here I will create my first interface, and this interface is nothing but my authentication interface, or you can keep it simple as iAuth. It's up to you. So I will make it as authentication service, and in this service I will have two things to do. The first thing is that I'll say task of register, and this will take the registration. I'll tell you what to return from there, no worries. So this is my register async, as this is my task, and this is my login async. Okay, and now whenever my login is success or failure, so you can just go ahead and return that particular user if you want to. So if you want to keep it simple at the moment, so let me just go ahead and just try to pass string at the moment, but trust me guys, I will be changing this. Okay, so this is a string at the moment, like register async and login async. Okay, I have these two services created. Now what I'll do, right, so my interface is there, so I will have to create the particular, so I'll have to implement this interface. So I'll create a class authentication again this will name match to what you have created the interface, so you will have to give the same name, just remove the I as a prefix. Okay, so this is my authentication service and hit enter. And over here let me implement the add up this particular interface here. So this is a contract, so I'll have to implement my contract over here. Okay, so I have login and register. So first of all I have to focus on the register. So to do the registration, right, so what you will do first, so you will be getting the register request. Okay, so what you can do, you can first check if the register request is not null. So you can say add if the request is null, so you can throw an exception that this register request, you can throw an argument null exception with the name of this register request. And if this is not null, then what you will do, you will have to add that record, right? So what you will do, right, first of all I will have to make use of the repository what I have created. So to use the repository you will have to do the dependency injection. Again let me show you the way how we used to do. So we have private read only. Okay, I need unit of work as well. Okay, that's fine. And then I will need the private user repository. Okay, let me remove the changes. Private read only user repository. Okay, and that's how it is. And now if you try to say implement, so it will not do because your application should have access to the domain. So what I will do, you will right click on your project, add a project reference and tell that okay, add the reference of this particular domain. And now if I do user repository, I'm able to access them and also able to access the unit of work because these interface are part of your domain. Okay, and now what I can do, right, whenever I want to do register, if this user is not null, then I will have to create a new user. So I'll say where new user is equals to this, which has email, password, and then also it has a username, correct? So that's how you created a user. And then what you can do, right, on the next line you can say user repository dot, if you remember I have add, async, delete, get all and all that, access from the repository. And also I have created two more of my own, which is get user by email and get user role by ID and all that. So I can say add async. If this is async method, I'll have to make use of await here. So let me add the await. All right, so let me save the changes. And once this is done, right, once the user is added, after that I will be calling the await dot unit of work, and over there I have commit async. Okay, so this will commit the changes inside my database. And once the commit is done, you can just say return. You can say return. Okay, by saying return you can say register success. Okay, something like that, because you're trying to return a string, that's it. Okay, and I know this is not a correct way to do things, but yeah, this is just a small demo so that we can test that our APIs are actually working. Okay, so now remember, right, we have created the private read only, but again I miss small things that you will have to create the constructor. So let me create the constructor here, and over here you have to specify the unit of work, okay, and the user repository, and you have to initialize them with this value. But we are using .NET 8, then you remember, right, if you hover on this, it will ask you to convert to primary constructor. I did this because I just wanted to show you guys what is that primary constructor doing. Okay, so if you add a primary constructor, then you can save all these 4-5 lines. If I hover on this, click on quick fix and use primary constructor, and if you see your dependency injection got added inside the class itself. Okay, so that's what is the power of your primary constructor is. So now you can remove this 2-line as well, and you have to start using this name, not that underscore and then the name of that. So now that's how you will be able to use it. Okay, and this is what it is at the moment. Now what you can do, right, you can also add one level of validation as well, that you can check if the user already exists, correct? So that's why I have added that logic where I can check that okay, where user exists, and I can make use of this user repository dot get user by email async, and I can pass this email ID. Okay, if I will check if the user exists, right, so I can say if the user doesn't exist, like if the user ID is not null, so there is also a new way, is not null. Okay, then I can say that return user already exists. Okay, something like that. Or else what it will return, it will not come into this block and it will come here and it will add the user for me. Okay, now let me save all the changes and let's see if our first API endpoint is working or not. All right, because now what I will be doing, right, if you remember in our API I have not added anything here as a logic, because now your auth controller, your presentation layer will be calling things from your business logic. So again, you will have to do the dependency injection. I will use the primary constructor to do that. Again, I'll say I authentication service, and this is my authentication service which I added here. And for the registration, what I will do, I'll say where response is equals to authentication service dot register async. Okay, and whatever will happen over here, right, it will get stored inside the response, and this response I want to send it to the user. Okay, one thing to note here, that this is not a valid way to do it, to be honest, but trust me guys, I just want to test my functionality if it is working or not, because even if this fails, right, it will always give you result okay, which is not correct. Okay, so don't worry guys, we will be doing something to fix all of this, but if there is any error, right, so that you can handle it at the moment by creating some exceptions. So you can throw some exception from your service, like for example, you can throw a exception from here as well. You can just say throw new exception that user already exists, or you can create your own exception by inheriting this exception class, and you can say that user already exists exception and whatnot. But for now, this is what I'm trying to do. I know this is not correct, but we will fix them by using result pattern in upcoming videos. Okay, so let me save all the changes and let me try to build my project. So let's go here and do .NET build, and let's see if everything is okay. All right, so now everything is okay. I just have 3 warning, but it's fine. The build is success. So I'm hoping that there will be one failure, and I know that failure, what is that? So let me just try to fail this, and then let me show you guys what is that issue. Okay, if I try to run my application, I will be able to see this endpoints created. Okay, the API/auth user register and API/auth login. Okay, if I go here and I try to click try it out, and if I click on execute, I'm hoping that there will be a failure of 500, which says that unable to resolve the service type I authentication service. I wanted to show this error because I wanted to tell you that this is what the importance of dependency injection is. So if you take a look at this particular controller where you're trying to inject this I authentication service and you're trying to use their methods, so you just cannot do the dependency injection directly. You have to somehow register them inside these services. Okay, so to do the thing like what I have did for infrastructure layer, right, I'll have to do something similar for my application layer as well, so that in the application layer itself directly I will have a service collection class, and inside that I can do all the dependency injection which is required, and that I can use it somewhere over here in the program.cs by saying builder.services.add application. Okay, something like that. So if you remember, we did something similar for this infrastructure layer. If I show it to you, okay, so I'll have to build something similar for the application layer. So for that, what I'll do, right, I'll go inside this application layer. I have an extension class already. I'll click this, I will choose a class, and I will give the name as service collection extensions. Okay, and hit enter. Again, this class is nothing but going to be a static class. Okay, and inside that you will have a static method which is public. Okay, you will say public static I service collection of add application, and then you will say this dot I service collection of this, and over here you will register your dependency injection for I authentication service as add scoped. If you don't know about what is dependency injection, don't worry, I will create a separate video about what is dependency injection and what are the different types of injection you can do. There are add singleton, add scoped, and add transient. I will talk about that in a separate video, and that will not be part of this .NET full stack series. I will take that video as a separate one to explain you in detail about dependency injection. Okay, so here if you see, there are few things which are breaking, because if you see, right, you cannot have this into the assembly, because the thing is, in the infrastructure layer was having some references from this application and it was able to use this iService collection. But to use the iService collection in this application layer, you must have to install few packages which is from the Microsoft itself. So to install the package, let me just do one thing. Let me right click on this application layer and I'll have to open it inside. But can you see I'm getting a oh, I didn't know about this, guys. So I will have to add a NuGet package here, and I can search for that package by saying Microsoft. I don't know if they help me to do the autocomplete. So let me just give the name here first. Okay, so this is the package name what I want to add, microsoft.extensions.dependency-injection.abstraction, and let me hit enter and let's see what happens, because I have no idea how this helps. Okay, yes, this is helping me to add the packages. So I can select Microsoft extension of this one which I am looking for. Let me hit enter and let's see if it is installed. Yes, it is giving me the option to install. Let me select the latest version, which was 8.1. Let's go and verify that inside the package. So in the application, you can see the packages. I can see one package got added, which is this dependency injection.abstractions. And now if I hover on this, right, I will get an option to use to import this namespace. So by using and all that, you can see on the top it has been added. And now the moment I do this, I can save this to our file. All right. And now what we have to do, right? If you remember the clean architecture principle, now we'll have to add this inside the service collection. Okay. But before that, let me tell you, right, if you look at the clean architecture principle, your presentation layer, which is API layer for us, should have a reference of the application, because the flow is inwards, correct? So what you need to do, right, you have to go inside your API project, right click here, and you have to say add project reference, and you have to select the infrastructure here. Okay, so the moment you do that, right, now if you open up your dependencies in the project, you can see that you have added a reference to the application project. Okay, so once you have added that successfully, what you can do, right, you have to go inside the program.cs file, and over here you have to add this line, which is builder.services.add-application. Okay, and make sure that you are making use of this using application. So this has to be added on the top. All right, so once you do that, now you will be able to register your application layer as well. And this application layer, you have did the dependency injection for authentication service, and I think everything is configured successfully. Now let me just stop this and let me go ahead and try to build the project again. Okay, if I build the project, I can see that 0 warning and 0 error, which is good. Now let's go ahead and run your application from this side, debug. If I click on this, and now this will start the application for me, and now I can see this API auth register. If I click on try it out, and let me give some name to this. Okay, @gmail.com, which is wrong. Okay, let me make it correct. And then password, I want to be as a string. It's fine. Username Shashi. Okay, and let me click on execute. The moment I do execute, right, can you see I'm getting a 200 okay with a register success. Okay, and just to verify that this is added in the DB, you can open up your this and right click on this table and select top 100 records, and can you see a one record got added for my name with this email and this particular password. Okay, and that's how I can say that you're able to create your first API. I know there are few flaws which we have to rectify in the upcoming videos, but now you can see your API is actually ready. Whenever you do a register, you will call your authentication service and you will pass in your register request to this guy, and this will go inside your application layer. Okay, and in this application layer you have this authentication service, and this will execute this bunch of logic for you. And can you see your DB logic is been abstracted by this method, which is async of this user repository, and you are making use of unit of work to commit your changes. So with this unit of work, you are committing the changes in the database as a single unit. I know for this example there is only one transaction what we are doing for the user, and then we are using commit async. I know this is not the correct example to do this, but trust me guys, when suppose you are saving a user, you are saving the role for that user, and you are updating it inside a context class or somewhere, then you have 3 transactions there, and then you can do a single commit. Okay, but yeah, this is what it is for now. But yeah, we'll try to refactor this a lot going forward, because again, throwing exception from a business layer is not a good practice for such thing, right? Because this is a validation issue, and we are trying to throw an argument null exception, and we are trying to throw your exception for user not existing and whatnot. So this is not a good practice to do that. So what we will do in the upcoming video, we will try to see, right, how we can implement a result pattern inside this, so that we are not throwing exception directly. Rather, we will send a success or a failure object, which we can send it to the user, and that can be handled very gracefully inside this auth controller. Okay, so to do that particular thing, we will be doing that in the next video. So in this video, that's about it, where we have learned about our first API creation, and we also saw the application layer responsibility, what it does. And we have also created our user repository, which is helping me to abstract the database logic. All right, so that's it from this today's video. If you find this video helpful, then make sure to subscribe to my channel, like this video and share it with your friends. Okay, if you have any doubt or any clarification about this topic, then you can mention them in the comment section. I will be happy to answer all of them. And if you want the code, like if you're really interested in getting this code, then what you can do, you can head over to this link on the shop section. You can go ahead and download this and you will be able to get the access of all the source code. And this is already completed. I have completed the API part for this one, so you can refer to this project whenever you are building it with me. All right, so that's about it guys. See you guys in the next video. Until then, keep coding, happy learning.